To achieve the green and digital transitions, Europe must significantly increase and diversify its critical raw materials supply, strengthen circularity, and support research and innovation. In the context of the overarching objectives of the European Critical Raw Materials Act and other policies will help to remove regulatory barriers and accelerate domestic development and sustainable supplies of battery materials such as nickel, cobalt, lithium, and graphite for ensuring rapid energy and mobility transitions. Increasing domestic capacity and investments across the battery value chain, including exploration, mining, and refining, will be essential. Please welcome representatives of the companies who will present the latest cases of the development of critical mineral resources in Finland, Norway, Slovakia, and Ukraine.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you all had a wonderful lunch. And welcome to this afternoon's session, this afternoon's first session at least. This is called Developing Critical Raw Materials Resilience. First, I'd like to say how delighted I am to be back here at MINEX Europe. Right at the beginning, Arthur showed a video that ran through all 7 conferences, and it was a bit of a trip down memory lane. I realised I've been to every one since Vienna, way back in about 2016. So Arthur always lays on a fantastic event, and once again he's excelled himself. So thanks very much, Arthur, Irina, and the rest of the team. There you are. You can pay me my £5 afterwards. So in today's early sessions, we heard a number of excellent presentations which made the case for Europe to develop its critical materials and minerals value chain. So I'm not going to repeat that, but I do love statistics, so I'm going to throw in a couple of comments and statistics of my own, if you'll bear with me for a moment. So we all know that the EU and wider Europe, largely, including the UK now, has decided to phase out completely the sale of internal combustion engine vehicles by 2035. Well, that was clearly an objective that was set in a very different geopolitical environment to one which we now live in, because Ursula von der Leyen only said recently that China still controls 97% of Europe's lithium value chain. Needless to say, I think that illustrates the need for developing our own supplies more than anything. But at the same time, it was reported in Mining Journal last month that the EU expects 45 new mines to be built within Europe by 2035, in 12 years. 45 new mines. Now, we as a panel just did a quick straw poll of how many mines in Europe we can think of that have opened in the last 10 years. I was the most optimistic at 5. Some estimates were even lower than that. So there is a significant challenge there. Industry is responding though, and we at ERM are involved in different aspects of at least 15 critical minerals mine projects in Europe. And we're also involved with vehicle manufacturers, chemical companies and tech companies who are all reaching up the value chain towards the mining end in an effort to secure the minerals that are so important, not just for our low carbon future, but their existence as companies post-2035. So in this session, we have 3 speakers who are at the cutting edge of the race to meet Europe's needs for critical minerals and thus enable the low carbon economy future. So without further ado, I'll introduce the first of those speakers, Marianne Urban from Prospec.
Ladies, gentlemen, the audience, thanks MINEX to have an opportunity to present what we are doing in Europe. Firstly, I should introduce myself. I'm Marian Urban, representing Prospect Limited company, working as a country manager, geologist in training, country manager for Slovakia. Usual disclaimer, skipping that. Overview. Prospect Limited is a diversified mineral exploration company with a focus on Northern and Central Europe. Has got the drill-ready tenements with low holding costs, in general operating in two countries, Slovakia and Finland. I will talk about the countries and projects further on. We have a rich database for future exploration, which lowers down the exploration costs. We have a precious metals optionality in Slovakian projects. Both countries are, Finland and Slovakia, considered to be pro-mining, politically stable countries with a strong EU support for critical mineral projects. I'll talk about the listing later on. In total, we have 9 projects with active exploration programs competing in between each other for the value and the money. And as I said, critical raw materials, cobalt, copper, rare earth, and precious metals. We have an experienced, successful technical and management team present on both countries and worldwide. Capital structure and corporate capital structure of the company. We are listed in Australian Stock Exchange called PRS, and also forgot to add that we are also on a Frankfurt Stock Exchange under code 1P80. Market capitalization about 5.7 million, with currently cash in hand about 1.1 million Australian dollars as of September 2023. This is the board and the management, experienced people from financing sector, geologists and mining engineer expertise. All of them have got some strong track record of the discovering, developing and managing the mining and exploration projects. Jason Beckton is the managing director who's supposed to be here, but unfortunately he cannot, so I'm replacing him as a speaker. So Prospect Limited has got a portfolio of high quality assets, nowadays focusing on rare earth, lithium and less precious metals at the moment. 2 countries, as I mentioned before, 3 projects in Finland, 2 of them are focusing on rare earth and 1 on lithium. And in Slovakia, 6 projects in total, 5 of them precious metal projects, and currently flagship is a cobalt, copper, nickel at central Slovakia. I'll talk about those in details. So let's dive into Finland. 3 projects mentioned earlier: Korsnas, Jokikangas and Sarenkila. Korsnas is a project that surrounds an old mine with quite unique deposit hosting large north-trending carbonate dikes. Jokikangas is again rare earth project with elongated bodies with mineral assemblage including fergusonite, allanite, columbo, niobium, tantalite. Sarenkila lithium project is more of a greenfield project with the occurrences of lithium pegmatites in cesium, tantalum and lithium permissive tract of pegmatitic rocks. So let's go deeply into these projects, mainly Korsnas, which is supposed to be a key project at the moment. 10 years surrounds an old mine, which is an old lead mine. It was mined between 1959 and 1972 with approximately 0.87 million tons of ore of averaging 3.6% lead. There is a mistake, typo, it's not allanite, it's apatite, and a few other rare minerals also made a deposit prospective for rare earth at that period. During the pilot production of a rare concentrate in the early 70s, the ore proved to contain 0.83% of rare oxides, but not utilized, not traded at that time. The ore body is north-south trending fault zone filled with a vein comprising coarse grain calcite, feldspar, diopside, and mainly rarer bearing hepatite. It's ideal location, having all of infrastructure in place because it's an old mine. I should mention that also quite close, a couple of 100 kilometers apart from the site, there is a rare processing facility in Estonia, which is a potential partner. There is, as you can see on the old picture of the mine, there is a tailings facility which has been recultivated, but has got some rare earth potential for reprocessing, and that may bring an early cash flow to the company if the project proves to be economic. Historical assays of the drill core from the area proves the potential of a rare earth. For example, one hole K289 returns 18 meters of 1.3% of total rare oxides with high values of praseodymium, neodymium, and dysprosium. As you can see on the map, there are 5 red outlined areas that represent the gravity low anomalies, which has got some good intercepts of the rare earth carbonate dikes. So that opens the potential. And also the glacial till samples from the past show the strong response on the rare earths, up to 7.3% of lanthanum cerium values. This is a closer look to the center of the license with the lead mine in the center. There are some exclusions, but it represents the urban area, which means you can explore it only when you have a deal with a landowner. So luckily, in this prospect, in this project, there was over 471 holes drilled in 50s, 60s, and 70s, and all core is now preserved under the Geological Survey of Finland and available for resampling. And luckily, all the rare earth intercepts, all the carbonatite intercepts are not sampled. Therefore, that creates an opportunity for a nice discovery there. We are slowly going through the process of resampling and reassaying it with the modern assays. There are several holes listed there with the values from the historical assays, but shortly we will deliver new modern assays from the old historical holes. Further up north in the country, there is a Jokikangas project, which comprises of 2 sub areas of Jokikangas and Honkamaki. The blue in the middle is a third-party license. The drill out of the area is less dense than in the previous project, but still the core is available. You can see some historical intercepts also listed there with quite good rare earth numbers. But those were only sampling the short intervals for scientific purposes, not for the resource drill out. Therefore, it opens the potential. Mineralization is considered to be allanite, and seems that it's quite extensive over the 4-kilometer range. Zone probably down to 250 meters. Lithium project in Karelia, it's in eastern southeast part of Finland. That's really a greenfield project with some occurrences of lithium pegmatite, and it's part of the Parikkala lithium cesium tantalum permissive tract, which is also explored by other companies further north. So this is really a very early stage project with some occurrences which needs more focus and more advanced exploration. Coming to Slovakia, as I mentioned, we have 6 projects, 5 of them are precious metals. I don't have time now to talk about those 5, but they've been drilled over the past years and have got some interesting targets. But now the main focus in Slovakia is Kolba project, which is copper, silver, cobalt and nickel. This is a brownfield with some medieval activities and waste dumps, but never been drilled. There is only one historical governmental hole for the stratigraphic purposes. We have a strong response from two rock chip sampling programs with having 4.5% copper, 1700 ppm cobalt and some 796 gram per ton silver maximum value, with averaging 1.9 copper, 622 ppm cobalt and 100 grams per ton silver. Recently we have applied a ionic leach program which proved around 2 kilometer trending zone with the potential. We started a drilling program, short drilling program this summer. Unfortunately, due to some technical problems during the drilling, we have to think about revising the program and bringing an alternative drilling concept to drill out the prospect. So, with respect to the coming results and news flow, as I mentioned, there was a drilling at Kolba, which has to be revised and drilled again. We are now in the process of sampling in Finland. We are now in the process of sampling the historical drill core. By the end of this year, that should be completed. Along with that, there is ongoing permitting for the further works, and we hope we will be drilling resource drilling in coming next year. In summary, I think we are in the right time, in the right place. We have an experienced, successful technical management team with a strong track record of recognizing, discovering, developing and mining international projects. We have in-country experience in both countries, in Slovakia and in Finland, with the set-up teams who are fully operational. We are within a stable EU economy pro-mining jurisdictions. We have access, as I mentioned at the start, we have an access to a rich database which basically brings a cost-effective exploration. No remote projects, all with the existing infrastructure, so easy to drill, easy to walk. We have also precious metal optionality across 5 underexplored areas in Slovakia, 9 projects in total, and that basically can speed up the whole exploration. These are the general images. I probably won't talk about it because there will be enough time to talk about it later. Some use of a rare earth in industry. And why Finland? And why? Because it's an excellent business environment, favorable jurisdiction, and also quite well-rated country for the mining. But I'm sure we will be talking about the challenges in Finland as well, and same in Slovakia. Slovakia also a favorable mining jurisdiction with some operating mines, an extensive country-wide central geological and geophysical database. We can build on a success. That's all for now. Thank you for attention, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Marian. Our next speaker is Graham Farrer, who's Head of Sustainability at Kingrose Mining. and his presentation is entitled Sustainable Exploration in Norway and Finland, Non-Technical Risk Management to Deliver Shared Value.
Thanks, Geraint. Thank you all for having me. First of all, as Geraint suggested, talking about non-technical risks to deliver shared value. So really trying to convert those risks into an opportunity and eventually into a competitive advantage. So I've been employed to lead the sustainability program at Kingsrose, which is both to elaborate on the why. There's been a lot of discussion on the why today, but also really focus on the how. There's no point in having a great vision and understanding the why if you can't actually implement your program. So in terms of presentation outline, just want to go through a couple of slides about Kingsrose, what we're trying to achieve, company vision and the like. Provide some definitions, which some or all of you may be or may not be familiar with. Just a short piece on the international setting to provide some context, and then running through each of our 4 projects, providing an overview, but also providing non-technical risks and the way we aim to mitigate those non-technical risks, and again, convert them into an opportunity. The final slide is on lessons learned and next steps. So really trying to share what we're doing well and how we can improve, hopefully with the aim of improving the industry. So about Kingsrose, we see ourselves as Discovery as a force for good. So that is trying to leverage the transformational nature of exploration and mining to deliver value and to deliver benefits to the community and stakeholders at large. We honestly believe that we can change the way mineral exploration is undertaken, make it more sustainable through exemplary environmental stewardship, but also proactive, consistent, authentic stakeholder engagement to really bring the communities along for that journey. And because of this, we believe that we can get access to ground to explore earlier, we can get consent, and we can develop these resources in shorter timeframes. So we've heard junior mentioned several times today. We're trying to remove junior from junior explorer. So we're trying to establish a new exploration business for a new world. We're doing this through building a team with excellent experience from discovery, exploration, operation, and also building a strong footprint in each area. So some benefits that we have: we're well funded. We can fund multiple years of exploration. We're sustainability-led and sustainability-focused, which means we should get access to capital easier, but we should also get consent from our communities before we start work. We have camp scale targets, so we're not just focused on individual targets. We have a portfolio of projects within each of the regions in the image to the right, which allows us to have multi-year exploration plans. And because of these multi-year plans, we have a long-term sharing of benefits. So not long-term in the mining timeframe, so not decades. We're also not coming in on a year-to-year basis. We can actually plan exploration programs for multiple years, which will allow us to better share those benefits. So some definitions, if you're not aware. Non-technical risk refers to risks and opportunities that arise from the interactions of a business with its external stakeholders and the environment. Social license to operate, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with, looks at acceptance of a mine or a mining company, or in our case, an exploration company, by employees, its community, stakeholders, and the general public. Social license to explore is really where we're focused on. That's based on social license to operate, but obviously targeted at the exploration stage of the project. Not much work has been done on the SLE concept, so we're really trying to build that out and share that with the community, which is part of the reason why I'm here today. And shared value, which is our ultimate goal, which is creating both monetary and social values, and not values that we suggest is valuable, but values based on the challenge of society. So that's a key piece that we're trying to move towards. International setting, this is the why. I won't go into too much detail here because it's been discussed by various people today. But it's really important to understand that this supply-demand transition piece doesn't operate in isolation. There's obviously geopolitical challenges, which have also been discussed today. There's the regulatory piece with Critical Minerals Acts and critical mineral policies and the positive and negative impacts that they can have on the communities. But most importantly, and also this has been discussed, is 15 years as a minimum from discovery to operation. and where we're operating is actually pre-discovery. And that's really our business case behind what we're doing, is we believe that the exploration company is the first face that the community sees. So if we do this piece properly, and we go through a detailed and thorough consultation process, there's authentic dialogue with communities, we understand our environmental settings and how to mitigate these environmental risks, then this permitting schedule can be compressed. So the first of our projects, which is the Rona project in northern Norway, it's a brownfield project with existing infrastructure, historical nickel mine, and we actually have a series of targets in place, and we're drilling on site now, and ongoing geophysics as well. So this is nickel, copper, cobalt as well, which is really interesting because it hasn't been properly explored through modern exploration methods. So the models are a little bit weak, and the exploration activities during operations weren't comprehensive. So we see a lot of value in this project, and it is our most advanced project that we're consistently working on. But there are non-technical risks, as there are in every project in Europe. So areas outside of the former mine footprint are pristine and largely undisturbed. So high biodiversity value, high water quality, and that water is actually used by the local cabin holders who use their cabins over the summer break. So we've got abstraction of surface water and groundwater for potable and domestic use. So there needs to be a lot of effort around making sure that we manage our environmental impacts, which is biodiversity and water. But to add a bit more complexity to the project, it's actually used for reindeer husbandry, which is a traditional land use of the Sami people. And there's actually winter grazing routes, and it's a herding district over winter, so that requires some careful management too. In terms of how we've managed these non-technical risks, a detailed environmental social due diligence before acquisition. We've had early and consistent engagement with our stakeholders. We have a local footprint employing local people, so we have field technicians and local geologists staying locally in the community and working on our site. We've developed informal social investment plans to better share benefits, so setting up a community-led investment program that we fund that looks at maintaining traditional knowledge, European culture, restoring environmental values, and of course skills development, so that if we do advance our projects, we have a workforce that's skilled and willing to help us out. Regarding heli drilling, we've selected heli drilling wherever possible to reduce the footprint and associated drilling impacts. So that's the image to the right. As you can see, it's very low footprint. We actually use closed loop water systems as well to minimise our discharge, and what we do discharge has lower contamination and all the sediments removed. We've also worked really hard at key communication and key messaging, including media specialists, to be more visual in the way we communicate what we're up to on site for investors, for local communities, and for the industry at large. What we could have done better and what we're working on in 2024, better structuring our stakeholder mapping and communication, more formal, earlier social investment planning, so setting up that system early, making sure that governance is in place. Management of expectations, particularly with cabin holders, around what drilling is and the impacts of drilling. Improved communication tools, back to that storytelling piece, making it more visual and earlier in the exploration process so that everyone understands what we're up to, where we're progressing and what's next. Improving our understanding of water baseline, so working on that much earlier to have a robust baseline before we move back into the area. And there's a really important piece around the local municipality permitting regime. Quite often exploration companies focus on the national permitting requirements, but as soon as you start working in an area, there are actually municipality requirements as well, particularly around noise, water discharge, dispensations for helicopter and snowmobiles as well. So our Finnmark project, located right in the northern part of Norway, we've actually staked over 2,700 square kilometres of reservations in that area. And we're working through, funded by BHP Explore, to actually refine those projects down to targets. So minimise our reservations, minimise our land holding, and really narrow down where we want to be drilling holes. So that's the image to the left. And as far as where we're at in the exploration process, we're currently planning geophysics, focusing on those targets. That geophysics will be ground-based and aerial, but the planning will not be completed until we finish our community consultation, so that we understand where we're operating from a social and environmental perspective and how to manage those risks. Really achieving consent before we do tasks that we don't really legally require consent for. So some of the non-technical risks, the areas are largely undisturbed and pristine. So similar to Rona, high biodiversity value, pristine water quality that's used for many sensitive uses. But most importantly, this project's located in the centre of, in the cultural heartland of the Sapmi region, which is used by the Sami people for reindeer husbandry. So that's a traditional land use, it's attached to their culture. Norway signed up to the ILO agreement regarding Indigenous peoples. So we've got a lot of work to do in that area to make sure that, first of all, we're complying with international standards, but most importantly, that we have consent and buy-in from the local communities before we start moving in and investigating. There's also some historical tensions with regards to mineral exploration. So no one's really drilled in the region since the 90s. And because of that activities back then that were completed with limited consent, that's resulted in environmental impacts, we're having some tensions. There's some challenges with communication around our activities. We believe our activities are set up to have the lowest possible impact, but there's a real communication piece, and again, the storytelling that needs to be explained. So in terms of the way we've managed these non-technical risks, similar to Rona, front-end ESDD, early and consistent engagement, social investment plans, but something we've also developed in cooperation with Protect Sapmi is a process agreement which really looks at terms of cooperation. So what we're going to deliver and what we expect in return in terms of consultation, payment of time, transparency, providing information when we need to, and making sure there really is that consent piece before we come in there and start working. We've also put a lot of effort into baseline flora and fauna surveys and also cultural heritage surveys, which we've been able to share with the Sami people regarding areas of significance that they may not have been aware of. We've also produced very detailed permitting documents, far more detailed than what you would expect to see from an exploration program, showing that we understand the area that we're operating in environmentally and socially, and that we're doing everything we can to mitigate those risks. So that's been provided to the Norwegian government, but we've also provided that to the affected reindeer herders as well, so that they can understand what we're doing, and also correct us where we've misunderstood something, and sitting down and getting that dialogue and making sure that whatever we do has not just a minimal impact, it actually has benefits for the community too. So in terms of where our 2024 focus is, again, more structured stakeholder engagement, earlier social investment planning. There's a really important part of the media, both local, national and regional, and leveraging that story that we're trying to tell. Improving communication, again, that storytelling, improved water baseline, but most importantly, building a local footprint. So we're currently looking at offices and accommodation and how to employ local people to deliver our project, but also to deliver our vision. The next project or range of projects is in the Kotalati belt, which is a similar area that you're looking at. So we've staked a fairly large area here as well, best part of 1,000 square kilometres. Again, through support, the BHP Explore program, we've actually narrowed those down to 14 really promising targets. And what we're doing now is planning our geophysics work, which has followed several months of quite intensive engagement. So going out and speaking to the environmental regulators, the municipality, and anyone that will talk to us really about what our activities are and how we're going to minimise those impacts. And again, share benefits wherever possible. So in terms of non-technical risks, largely undisturbed and pristine again. There's multiple sensitive uses for surface water and groundwater. There's actually freshwater seals in the region as well, which requires additional consideration. And similar to the other projects, there's a lot of historical tensions regarding minerals exploration, despite this being in a region where mining and exploration have happened historically. So this image to the right is actually within the region during a consultation over summer. As you can see, it is very pristine. That's a lake used for recreational purposes, including fishing as well. So what we've done well in the area, again, early ESDD, early engagement, early social investment plan. We're actually working through really detailed flora, fauna and water surveys, which is really important within the region, because a lot of the communities are concerned about the impacts of exploration on the recreational uses, on the environment, and on tourism as well. So we really need to make sure we get that piece right, and I believe we have so far. We've done a really good job at mapping stakeholders and their concerns, and that's why I can quite confidently stand up here and say, we know our concerns of the stakeholders within the regions, and now we're working at trying to mitigate those impacts and share benefits. So in terms of the 2024 plan or continuous improvement, again, there's a media piece and several communication pieces that we need to work on as well. That's storytelling and managing the misinformation that happens with regards to mining and in particular exploration. Drilling 5 or 6 holes doesn't mean there's going to be an open pit mine next year, and there needs to be a lot of effort around communicating that piece. And a big focus for the back end of this year and early next year is employing local people, building our local footprint, including a sustainability team locally, who can get out there and talk at more a tactical level with all of our stakeholders. So the final project, which is Pennycat, located in northern Finland. Some really impressive historical drilling, shows high-grade PGE, nickel and copper. It's close to existing infrastructure, it's close to the regional capital of Rovaniemi, but in terms of non-technical risks, it's within a Natura 2000 area, which is an area designated under EU law as having a high biodiversity value. And because of that, and rightly so, there's a very thorough permitting process that we need to be working through. So it's nearly consistent with what you would expect for a mine development. So we're working through that process now. We're showing that our activities will not have an impact on flora, fauna and the people. But we also have Finnish reindeer herders in the region too that need consultation, and some NGOs that need to be focused in on when it comes to the storytelling and how we're mitigating our environmental impacts before we even move into a region. And similar to the other projects as well, despite being a historical mining area and actually a current operational mine very nearby, there's some hesitation around exploration and the impacts that it might have on the high biodiversity value. In terms of how we manage these risks, again, early ESDD, early engagement, early social investment planning. The detailed flora-fauna surveys were exceptional quality, and they've been delivered by consultants that have done this work before. And we've actually also employed people that have worked in Natura 2000 exploration sites before, including our Finnish exploration geologist, who is marking out drilling pads with a fishing rod on the right. We've done a really good job at mapping our stakeholders and their concerns as well. We really understand what the concerns are, and we've integrated those concerns into how we're mitigating the impacts of our drilling activities, and also, again, focusing on sharing the benefits. In terms of 2024, where we're moving, leveraging local media, communication again, which focuses on exploration versus mining, but also how to communicate technical data in a non-technical way. So once our permitting documents are approved by the Finnish government, we're going to need to publish those, and rather than having people reading through 160 pages of scientific text, how do we better communicate that story? Maybe an interactive platform, or a series of internal workshops, just to make sure we understand, well, the community understands what we're doing and why. And the figure at the bottom shows our permitting roadmap, and you can see the timeframes at the bottom. It's an extended process, and that's going to be on top of the 15 years, unless we can turn around community perception around mining and manage those non-technical risks properly. So in terms of lessons learnt and next steps, clear early and structured engagement is really important, and then tailoring this engagement to focus on concerns and uncertainties of our communities is equally as important. Rather than just focusing on impacts, we need to also focus on benefits, and working out how we can quantify these benefits is really important as well. We just can't say to the community, you'll benefit from us having us in the region. We need to say why, and then we need to qualify that with data. Goes without saying, but non-technical risk management and moving towards share value must start well before exploration planning. So we just can't do this work in parallel. We need to be out there talking to people before we start drilling, before we start our geophysics, and definitely before we start planning a mine. Local footprint's really important. We need to have people talking the local language, that understand the local concerns, that are fed by an overarching good quality corporate strategy. We can't have one person out there talking to all the communities. It just doesn't work. We need local teams, and we need to increase our local footprint. In terms of next steps, and this is part of the reason I'm here today, we have a great vision, but we need to work out how to implement that vision. And this presentation and the work we've been up to is a start of that. And then over time, we need to work on maturity and moving towards ESG credentials and making sure that we enact what we say on the ground throughout all of our activities. Communicating our great work is a really essential component. There's no point operating in isolation and doing all of this great work without communicating it to communities, to the wider industry in a way that's easily digestible and understood. Most importantly, trust takes time. We just can't come into a region and expect to be accepted immediately. We need to invest, we need to consistently talk with people, we need to be honest, open and transparent, and delivering shared value is an outcome of all of this investment, and this is our current focus. So thank you very much, or tak in Norwegian, or gitu in Sami, and kiitos in Finnish. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Graham. Our third and final presentation is from Anna Poberezhna, CEO of Clean Hub. Her presentation is intriguingly titled TI Time, Developing Titanium Economy.
Hi, and thank you for having me, everyone. I would like also to have a special thanks for organizers Arthur, who has been brave and supporting Ukraine for all this time, inviting us, and also there's a special thanks for a very special guest for myself. It's my parents who came all the way from Ukraine. And titanium. So it's always a tea time, and it's interesting that we have today our gathering in the Alice in Wonderland tab, and that's just a pure coincidence where we have a tea time here as well. Titanium is a future metal and has been consistently is. And future metal for the last 200 years since its discovery, along with aluminium and other structural metals, which are fundamental for our transition, green transition and inclusive transition and just transition. So let's go. So titanium economy, there are many variabilities. There's water economy, there is hydrogen economy, but today I'd like to speak about the titanium economy. Why it's so special? Titanium economy is fundamental, or titanium mineral is fundamental for green energy transition, which constitutes of almost 7.1% of weight of global equity markets, comparably in size to fossil fuels. So if you really want to make a dent and you really want to make a difference and shift their global dial in the energy transition, titanium here is to help us. The other interesting fact that we'll see later, that despite the historical cycles of economic development, of ups and downs, what we can actually oversee during the 10-year period, 20 years periods, or 100-year periods, titanium was consistently, of course, correlated with the inflation rates. However, their industry that titanium fits into, which consists of roughly around 90 verticals, has been over-delivering their profits and revenues also consistently. So if you really want to invest into safe haven and follow the Warren Buffett advice, it's companies with a moat. Those are actually maybe the least sexy ones which we think of today. And with regards to profitability, titanium-related industries provide around 13% of the operating margins versus 4% of other industrials across economic cycles. That's what I just mentioned. So there are some interesting facts. And behind me you also see a torch. It's a torch from 2012 Olympics in London. And although we know that most of the torches in Olympic Games are made of aluminum alloys, and there's chrome coating, this is very different. This is a titanium nitride. And titanium nitride is also fits into the ceramics. It's one of the strongest coating materials we can see. So it's very symbolic for London to have titanium, 2012, and one of the most successful Olympics from the perspective of infrastructure development. And so in terms of the titanium value chain, here's a visible representation, how it looks like, and we can actually see it in existing industries and the industries which are coming forward to us. It's equally important for decarbonization of oil and gas. It's equally important for the growing water scarcity technologies, which are desalination, and especially focusing in the Middle East and the water-arid areas. Because of its qualities and properties, it's very much corrosion resistance. But also we can see it's in the very much one-of-a-kind or state-of-a-kind buildings, constructions. It's a state of art. So there is a building, obviously everyone knows about the Bilbao Guggenheim Museum. It's made of titanium. And the interesting fact, why it's made of titanium, it was a very, very difficult process to do that. But because we follow the titanium cycles, and with the collapse of USSR, there was basically a lot of titanium left in the warehouses stocks, and it was very, very much undervalued. So engineers came up with a brilliant idea how to utilize titanium and create the iconic building, or one of the few iconic buildings, this one. So until today, no one actually was brave enough to recreate something very similar to titanium because of its difficulty to manage in production and generally in terms of the shaping. But hey, we have one of the examples. And of course, everyone hears about their drones or their dual-purpose vehicles, aerial. So that's one of the key components for that as well. Along, of course, with other aircrafts and defense industries, where titanium can contribute to the total weight between 15 and 70%, depending upon the type of the product. And of course, we know that with growing orthopedics requirements, titanium actually fits into the joints, into the limbs, because it's the only one metal that is compatible with humans. It's non-toxic, 100% recyclable, and actually 95% of the consumption of titanium in the United States has been consumed, whatever is important. So now let's see what are the challenges and why I'm talking about titanium. Apart from that, it's a critical material and #1 strategic material for the global security and the national securities, especially in these global political challenges. So I'd like to focus not on the geopolitics, but I'd like to focus on the geoeconomics, because in the end of the day, geoeconomics always win. So currently we really have, and the COVID and of course war in Ukraine, exposed the weaknesses, like in many other supply chains, the weaknesses in the titanium value chain. The interesting fact that, of course, China has the largest reserves and the largest capacity right now in terms of the production, and along with the other 6 countries which are producing titanium, including Ukraine. The interesting fact, so with the current rate of developing the resources, we're actually going to have lack of supply of titanium as well. Because titanium is not a pure material or pure mineral on its own. It usually comes from rutile and from ilmenite. And we can see there is a distribution of the map of the resources. However, those are raw materials. But to actually extract the titanium, which comes into the alloys in almost in every single element or product which we're using with us daily, we need to have sponge production, which is a base material. And sponge production, of course, was in Ukraine until the world was producing 12,000 tons. Currently, their largest facility in Japan, and thankfully Russia has been sanctioned as of September 25, Avisma, which was the largest producer of titanium into the aerospace industry. So now we have left Ukraine that is slowly but surely reviving its production. Then we have Japan, and then we have, of course, Saudi Arabia, and then we have a couple of other handful of countries that are reviving their titanium and innovation titanium. So what we have here is just exactly what I mentioned before, is about the fragmentarity of their supply chains of titanium. And what we're going to see in the future, we're going to see a lot of tech-driven changes in titanium manufacturing as well. Because before, since 1940s or since 1950s, there was really very much lack of innovation or under-innovated investments into the titanium production globally. And now we can see a lot of closing loops and delivering alternatives, what is happening across the world, where industry is trying to actually create the new green titanium standards, not by discussing the green titanium standards, but actually by doing closing loops in terms of circularity, recovering the scrap, recycling the scrap. However, there's a lack of technologies. Despite that we have around 100 types of alloys, we have probably 100 types of technologies, which today I was informed from my technologist. Realistically, we have 7 and 8 that are working and make economic sense. So it's almost like same ratio like in mining. 99.9 almost of mining projects, exploration, are failing. So here, almost the same, almost like in the same industry. So there's a bit of a comparison for you, so you can actually put in perspective titanium versus aluminum versus steel. So although they were discovered almost at the same time, titanium and aluminum, you can see how much the cost difference is still there. So there's a bit of a work to be done, and there's a bit of a margins to be made, although that's not a very simple case. What about the environmental impact? Because the real sustainable economy is consisting of energy, security, and of course, net positive environment. Where I'm not talking about the net zero, I'm talking about that net positive, because net zero brought us to the crossing boundaries of our Earth. So that's where I'm saying there's a lot of work to be done, improving water consumption, energy consumption, and reducing CO2 impact. The good news that we have already seen significant improvements in the space, and over the last 40 years, actually cost of titanium production, especially because of the powder manufacturing, has decreased almost by 50%. Powder manufacturing is not new. It's actually been developed 5,000 by Egyptians, so 5,000 years before our era. But powder manufacturing in titanium space, along with the other alloys and metals, is actually becoming mainstream just now. So that's the price change. That's how it's changed over time. And this is where we see potential market revenues growth in comparison to where we are now and 2030. So it's a still great industry, and we can see or expect the saturation of certain technologies by 2030. So currently several technologies are maturing, and one of those technologies we are also working ourselves. So what is the way forward here is not completely dismissing the old forging, melting, smelting type of the production, and a lot of titanium manufacturers are right now becoming integrated, just like in the lithium space and just like in any battery and other spaces. As long as, because it's a strategic industry and it's a strategic metal, so there's a lot of consolidation happening on the market. However, that a lot of technology and transfer has to happen, as there's leading countries in the world that still have great potential to fulfill it. Ukraine also has some great potential, and it used to be a closed loop cycle economy, basically from mine to aerospace industry. Now it will require quite a bit of an effort to revive it and actually to take it to the next level. However, we can see there's a leapfrog can be done with the additive manufacturing, which is one of the streams potentially achieving their efficiency and cost efficiencies and environmental efficiencies in the market space, and take it as global market share as well. So to explain you here, so to make it very simple, so there's a titanium process and then that a green box. So this is an incremental change of the Kroll process, which has been introduced to us and marketed since 1940. And there are different approaches. There is recycling, there's a scrap recycling, there is powder manufacturing. So this is potentially part of the process which we are looking at. And there are several points of optimization and cost efficiencies which we can achieve, and hopefully something that we can show in the future and actually in present time. And I'd like to thank for your attention, and if you have any questions about this quite unique material and metal and mineral, 3 in 1, and I'm more than welcome to answer those questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. Fascinating, very thought-provoking. Now, we are just past 3 o'clock, or just on 3 o'clock, which is our scheduled finish time. Arthur, do you want us to try and take a couple of questions, or? Okay, if anybody from the floor has a question, please step forward and tell us who you are and where you're from before you ask your question, please. Up to the mics.
Thanks very much for 3 really focused presentations. I'm a technical person, so I really appreciated that. Just a question for Marion. On your Cosmos project, with those gravity loads, sorry, I should have said Tim Archer from Bridge Geophysics. I'm a consultant in that space. Did you consider flying airborne gravity gradiometry? And have you looked at drone geophysics?
We have an experience with the drone geophysics in Slovakia. We already applied that, which was great in terms of a cost-efficient survey. But we haven't thought about flying it again in Finland yet. We are just evaluating what we have now, and obviously it will come to a question later in a project, probably next year.
Yeah, they may be too narrow to find from the air, but if they've got some strike, it might be worth considering.
Yeah. Good. Definitely worth considering. And as I said, we have a great experience with in Slovakia with the drone magnetic survey.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the floor, please? Okay. Find that, yeah. Please come forward. The lights are in our faces, so it's quite difficult to see people at the back.
Ian Pickard, Prestagio Worldwide. Quick question for Graham. Very interested in the concept of social license to explore. One of the issues that we become very aware of in mining is that there's a lack of continuity between developing social lines between explorer, construction and production. So the people in construction or production will say, well, all the problems were created by the explorers promising X, but they didn't have to pay for it, and then the village elder doesn't know that the company's changed. They come in and say, well, 2 years ago you promised this and now you can't do it. How are you going to get around that problem when I assume you will move the company on to someone who's going to construct it and put it into production?
Yeah, good question. Quite a boring answer though, apologies. Systems. So making sure we capture our commitments, making sure we have records of who we've spoken with and when and what we've promised. But also we're already starting to talk about this now, and we haven't decided whether we are not going to be a mining company or whether we might mine, depending on the asset. So we're still debating that, which is kind of blurring our external messaging, unfortunately. But what we're talking about is if we do divest an asset, that building some of the commitments we've made to the community into the contract. So whoever's investing in us is aware of the commitments we've made, and then whoever's buying us is also aware of the commitments that we've made, and they actually have buy-in into I guess that relationship we've developed with the community. But it's all in theory right now, until we find something, which hopefully will be very soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Any other questions, please?
Hi, this is Gonzalo Waldman at Synergy Capital. I have a question for Anna. So, you made a comparison between titanium and aluminum, and how titanium hasn't advanced as much. I mean, hasn't experienced its aluminum moment. And let me give a little bit of historical background here. There's this famous story about Napoleon III giving parties, and the more steamed guests would eat out of cutlery made of aluminum, and the rest would just use silver. But then all of a sudden, at the turn of the century, when Alcoa was founded as a result of this, a new production method was found that reduced the cost of aluminium by a factor of 10 times. In the case of titanium, where do you see the future? Is it an aluminium moment, or is it a combination of small evolutionary changes that all together will produce the same effect?
Thank you for the question. So in terms of their titanium, there has been evolution or development already has been happening, and there are several handful companies that are working on the process of advancing their titanium technology and integrating the value chain towards the alloys, specialty alloys, and the powder manufacturing, which goes into the additive manufacturing, which eventually, by some people, hopefully will replace a traditional process. In terms of their predictions, I think predictions are the worst things you can do. I know that personally, we're looking into at least 3 technologies that are incrementally improving crawl processes, existing process, and optimizing their resource efficiencies and energy efficiencies with a decreased level of around between 50 and 70%, depending upon the geographical location. However, if you're going to look into the scrap recycling and trying to completely avoid their primary use of materials, there's a lot of innovation can be done. However, there's no significant advancement has been achieved as of yet. But it doesn't mean that it wouldn't have a breakthrough moment in the next 5 to 10 years, as I mentioned in the presentation, because the maturity of several processes we expect by 2030. Thank you.
Very good, thank you, Anna. And with that, I think, well, thank you to everybody for allowing us to take 7 minutes of your coffee break, and particular thanks to our 3 excellent speakers. So we'll close the session there. Thanks very much.